I highly recommend, if you are going to do this and use bogey wheels off of an old sled that has bogey wheels, particularly an old Skidoo like I'm doing, dang it. Oh, whenever I start talking. You get yourself a Pitman arm puller if you don't have one already to pull your old bearings off. Instead of trying to pound them off. What you'll need to do though is you'll need to use a socket that's smaller in diameter than the inside of the bearing. All these bogey tubes, the tubes for this suspension, are just thin wall tubing. So it's pretty tricky. You almost got to be exact in order to make it work. Let's see, what am I using? In case you're doing it in a lawn or a Olympic like I am. 3/4 inch socket I'm using as a sacrificial push post for the puller. You pull your old bearing off, chuck it because it's 40 years old, and then your new, if you buy complete wheel assemblies, your new wheel assembly will come with the bearing. You put your back cap on first. You can take your wheel out of the bearing. Now, you can press this bearing in, but I found, and you always put the open side towards the cap, the outer cap, so that the grease fitting will fill it with grease. But I found you can tap this on and not damage the bearing with a sledgehammer like this. Just like that. Bearing is still good. Race is not damaged. All is well in the land down under. So these bearings come pre-lubed, but I have a special lubricant here called fluid film. And it's a cold weather sprayable grease. I used it back when I used to drive truck because the latch mechanism on my back door, the swing over latch mechanism, would freeze when it got like 20 below, and then I couldn't get the door open, so I had to find something that wouldn't freeze up to use as a lubricant. And fluid film, powerful rust and corrosion protection. I don't know, somewhere in here it says that it's really good for cold weather, but I used it. I was happy with it. It worked good for me, so. Well, it's just a matter of pushing some bolts through. I usually I do this. Listen to me, like I've done this before. I have been doing this, let me phrase that properly, like you would do a tire on a car, and rotating the torque sequence to apply even pressure to the cap just so I don't get some kind of weird twisting thing going on. That seems to be pulling it down tight evenly. And you can just see right there, you can see the importance of that, because when I tighten those first two bolts down, the wheel bound up, and then I tighten that third one, and now it's free. So try to do like you're tightening lug nuts on a car tire or head bolts or something on an engine. If you've ever done anything like that, do it in a torque sequence. There we go. So now what I do is in the very front of every single one of these caps is a little zerk fitting hole. Squirt some of my stuff in there. And I put a zerk back in. Take the zerks out of the old one, caps or whatever. Put them back in the new one. The way this is designed to work is you pack that opening with grease, with a grease gun, and then it keeps those bearings lubed. There we go. One more bogey done. Starting to look good. Oh, didn't put a zerk on this one. Much more complicated than a modern snowmobile suspension, that's for sure. But I can run this in the summer on a hot, dry summer day and not have to worry about melting my suspension like you would on a modern sled. All right, this one is an old school. Where's my last bogey? Here it is. So you pretty much get the gist here. I gotta cut all the little rubber locator teats off of this one. Put it on there, and pin it down. It's working pretty good. And then I'll have the bogies done. I'll have the front and rear drive sprockets done. everything will be done as far as the driveline components of the suspension. And then I have to spend the better part of a week modifying that track to make it work. Yay!